A brand new source has approached me about this Activision and Toys for Bob situation that has brought to light some interesting details about Activision's future. What are they? Well, let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and back with a brand new video. So the past few weeks has been quite a roller coaster ride. First we were up, and then we were down, then we really went down, then we came back up, and now we're about to go for a loop. So you better hang on. Things are about to get a little confusing. So if you've missed the news, here's a very quick summary. Obviously, first off, Xbox has completed the acquisition with Activision. Then, as of January, Xbox laid off 1,900 employees. Then we found out that around 35 of Toys for Bob's 85 core employees were included in that layoff. Then we had a scare from a poorly worded article that assumed that Toys for Bob was actually shutting down, only to find out that it was only the physical location that was shutting down due to its size and large operating costs, and the 50 core employees are going remote and working from home. Now, there are a lot more details about the situation that is going on, so if you want to get all the details on them, I highly suggest you go and check out these other videos. But since I started reporting about all of this, many people have started to privately reach out to me. My DMs and emails have been loaded with people telling me a whole bunch of different information. Of course, I haven't brought all the information forward because I always vet my sources to make sure that they are legit in their claims. However, I had one person come forward that, after extensively vetting them and speaking with them privately, brought a curveball of information. As expected, this person asked that they stay anonymous, but rest assured, I double and triple checked the position that they claimed to have, and they did check out. Now, I also want to make a note right off the bat that they claim they have no knowledge of Crash and Spyro directly. That was not their department, and they are in the dark when it comes to those games. But the information that they brought me, in my opinion, would affect the franchises as a whole. So what was it that they claimed that was such an information curveball? Well, the first piece of information this source told me was that Activision seems to be making a gigantic shift to Canada. Like a gigantic investment and push towards a massive workforce north of the border. According to my source, they said that, quote, Activision has decided to massively expand into Canada, and whatever roles closed in the US may not be reopened in the US, and instead will be likely moved to Canada. Now, some of you may be wondering, what does that have to do with Crash and Spyro? And why is this important? Trust me, we will get to that because I have my own personal discoveries on top of this information that my source had told me. But the reason that Activision is apparently going to massively expand into Canada is because development costs are roughly 40% cheaper in Canada in comparison to California. And as someone who lives in Canada and has worked in the entertainment industry and living near one of its megacities, I have firsthand knowledge about this stuff. And yes, they are correct. The cost of living in California is actually insane. And while the cost of living in Canada isn't great, Canada gives tax credits and breaks to companies like Candy if they make films, TV, or video games in Canada. Additionally, Activision wouldn't have to pay for healthcare because healthcare is provided through the government via taxes. And if you have a studio that's located in the province of Quebec, there is an additional tax credit that entertainment companies receive on top of the ones from the Canadian government. Now, if you're a Keen Dive fan, your mental gears may have already started turning. And don't worry, I'll be talking about exactly what you're probably thinking about in a bit. Now, Activision seemingly won't be shutting down the studios that they currently have in California, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be hiring too many more core employees consistently. While California is crazy expensive, it's also where most of the gaming industry is, which means there's a large amount of talent that can be used. What might happen is over time, some of the new hires for game development under Activision Studios could start off in contract work in California, but would be full-time employees right off the hop in Canada. Of course, this is not definitive, and there could be many contractors in California being turned into full-time employees, but contract work may be the focus for new hires in California. Now, you may be thinking, Activision already has a few studios located in Canada, and the thing is, all of them are going to have massive expansions. For example, Treyarch has a studio out in Vancouver. Sledgehammer Games is in Toronto. But the studio I want to focus your attention on is Beenox. Remember how I said if your studio was located in Quebec, you not only get tax breaks and credits from Canada, but from the province of Quebec itself? Guess where Beenox is located? Yep, you guessed it, Quebec. Specifically, Beenox has two studios, one in Quebec City and one in Montreal. In terms of employee size, we found out that Beenox was one of, if not was the biggest studio under the Activision banner, having several hundred employees. Now, if you have a studio that big, you would expect that they would be largely affected by the 1,900 employees that were laid off, right? Actually, while I don't doubt they had employees laid off, according to another source that I had spoke with, they heard that Beenox was hardly touched. And personally, I also didn't find any tweets from any Beenox employees saying that they were affected by the layoffs. Now again, there may have been some affected by the layoffs, but there's not that many that are going public. This, in my opinion, reinforces the idea that yes, Canada is going to be a huge focus for Activision's workforce. But again, what does this have to do with Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon? Now, after speaking at length with the news source about Activision's huge investment in Canada, I started investigating and theorizing. Assuming that Toys for Bob is no longer working on Call of Duty or Overwatch 2, they will likely be working on two projects, maintaining Crash Team Rumble and potentially Spyro 4. So I thought, is it possible that with this big focus on Canada, but none of the studios in California shutting down, that Toys for Bob is going to partner up with Beenox? In practice, it makes complete sense. Beenox and Toys for Bob teamed up multiple times in the past for multiple games, from Skylanders, Crash Team Racing, and even Crash Bandicoot 4. Beenox is considered a Swiss Army knife when it comes to development, as they are able to juggle multiple projects at the same time. I mean, at one point they were leading and working on Crash Team Rumble and helping with Call of Duty, Tony Hawk, and Crash Bandicoot 4 all at the same time. And need I remind you, these games have all different teams from all around the world with different art styles and even different engines. Now, when the layoffs of the 1,900 people were announced in January, I went to LinkedIn and various other job searching sites seeing if there was any companies that were under the Activision banner that were still hiring, and I got zero results. Every job application was taken down right when the layoff happened, including Toys for Bob's. Now, at the time of recording, Toys for Bob actually still hasn't posted any more job applications. However, our friendly French-Canadian studio has. Now, in the past, Beenox is typically very forward with their job applications, as in, they typically pretty much tell you right out of the gate if the job is for Call of Duty, as they are largely seen as a Call of Duty support studio, or at the very least, it's heavily hinted at. However, for these new jobs posted, there is no direct mention of what's being worked on. Not Call of Duty, not anything. There's not even a heavy-handed hint. But specifically, there was a job posting on February 13th looking for an associate technical producer for Beenox. The job's requirements list off most things that you would expect for a game developer, one of them being fluent in French and English, quote, to be able to interact with internal and external partners around the world, present projects or documents, and use our shared technology tools. Which makes sense, because not only is Beenox located in Quebec, which is bilingual, but they also partner up and develop with multiple studios around the world. But when we get down to the extra points area, we find this quote saying, experience with live game services, in brackets, live ops. This last bit of experience gives away that this title is most likely going to be for an online game that typically gets different seasons, hence live ops. Now, granted, this job could very easily be for Call of Duty or Warzone. But again, if it was for the Call of Duty franchise, why wouldn't this be mentioned in the job application like it was in the past? They used to be so open about whether or not this was for Call of Duty. Why would they suddenly be shy? Well, what if it wasn't Call of Duty? But what other title does Activision currently have that's a live game service? Ding, 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 it's Crash Team Rumble, the multiplayer Crash Bandicoot game developed by Toys for Bob. Additionally, this job was listed on February 13th, 2024, less than a week after the report that Toys for Bob's physical studio was going remote, and just over 2 weeks after Xbox laid off 1,900 people. The timing seems odd. So, if this job is for Crash Team Rumble, then it shows further proof and evidence that Beenox would be partnering up with Toys for Bob for future projects, including, yes, potentially, Spyro 4. So here's my overall thought process of said theory. The 50 people still working at Toys for Bob remotely will likely have the creative and mechanical vision for the overall project. Think all of the studio heads and all the managers. They will also contract other companies like Airborne or any number of the other art companies that they use, or maybe one-off contractors. But a lot of the legwork of development will also be shifted to Beenox. Once any aspect of the game is finished, they would send it back to Toys for Bob to review and finalize. Now, I'm no dummy. I get it. This is a theory, not a fact. So I decided to bring this whole theory to the source that told me about Activision's great Canadian expansion. They told me that in terms of Beenox and Toys for Bob partnering up, quote, it makes a lot of sense. Additionally, I showed them the job application and the potential that the job could be for Crash Team Rumble. Now, admittedly, while the job application, like I said, could be for Call of Duty, they also said, quote, then again, no reason why it couldn't be for Rumble. At least not in my mind. I see no good reason why not. So it's possible the new direction that Activision is going is to enlist a significant amount of help from its Canadian studios to develop more new titles. In my opinion, Beenox would be a prime example of a team that could easily hitch onto Toys for Bob and develop many great games together, whether it's continuing to support Crash Team Rumble, helping with Spyro 4, and yes, crazy enough, maybe even leading a team for a theoretical Crash Bandicoot 5. Now, if you want to hear some news about Spyro 4, check out this video here. But anyways, what do you guys think of all of this breaking news? Comment below and let me know. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye!